The classroom buzzed with activity as the students prepared for the big day, a major project that would contribute significantly to their final grades. Desks were scattered with papers, books, and laptops, the hum of chatter weaving through the air as groups huddled together to finalize their plans. The suburban high school, known for its competitive academic environment, was a melting pot of talent and ambition. Yet beneath the surface of camaraderie and collaboration, subtle tensions lingered, particularly for students who didn't fit the mold of what some teachers considered ideal. Amid the bustling energy, Malik entered the room, his usual calm demeanor masking the determination that fueled him. Tall and poised, he carried himself with a quiet confidence that came from years of perseverance. Malik was known for his sharp intellect and relentless drive to excel, qualities that had earned him the respect of many of his peers. Yet his journey through the school's halls was not without its challenges. As one of the few black students in the advanced placement classes, Malik often found himself navigating a landscape fraught with unspoken biases and double standards. Today, however, Malik was focused on one thing: acing his presentation. He'd spent countless hours perfecting his research, rehearsing his points, and anticipating questions. This was his moment to shine, to prove not only his abilities but his worth in a space that often seemed determined to doubt him. At the front of the room, Mr. Randall leaned against his desk, his sharp gaze scanning the room. A veteran teacher with decades of experience, Randall was respected by some for his rigorous standards, but quietly criticized by others for his favoritism and subtle prejudices. He prided himself on his no-nonsense approach, often using his authority to challenge students in ways that bordered on intimidation. For Malik, Randall had always been a source of friction. As Malik took his seat, Randall's eyes followed him, a flicker of disdain crossing his face. "Ah, Mr. Collins," he drawled, his voice dripping with condescension. "Ready to dazzle us today? Or are we going to get more of the same excuses?" The room fell silent, the playful chatter evaporating as all eyes turned to Malik. The jab was sharp, its edge unmistakable. Randall's words were framed as a joke, but the underlying message was clear. He didn't believe in Malik's potential. Malik met Randall's gaze, his expression impassive, but his mind racing. He was no stranger to these moments. Over the years, he'd grown adept at swallowing the sting of such remarks, choosing to let his actions speak louder than words. But today, the weight of expectation felt heavier than ever. The silence lingered, thick and uncomfortable, until a classmate awkwardly cleared their throat, breaking the tension. Malik turned his attention to his notes, pretending not to notice the sympathetic glances from a few of his peers. His composure remained intact, but inside a fire burned. He wouldn't let Randall, or anyone else, diminish his efforts. As the class settled into their presentations, the atmosphere shifted. One by one, students stood before the room, presenting their projects with varying degrees of confidence. Randall's feedback was sharp and direct, but Malik noticed a pattern. His criticism seemed harsher for certain students, his praise reserved for those who fit a particular mold. When it was Malik's turn, he rose from his seat, his heart pounding, but his resolve unshaken. As he approached the front of the room, he could feel Randall's eyes boring into him, a silent challenge that dared him to falter. Into him, a silent challenge that dared him to falter. Malik began his presentation with steady confidence, his voice clear and measured as he outlined his research. He fielded questions with precision, anticipating Randall's probing inquiries and countering them with well-thought-out responses. For a moment, it seemed he was turning the tide. But then, just as Malik was building momentum, Randall interrupted. "Interesting points. But don't you think you're oversimplifying the data? It's one thing to pull information from sources, Mr. Collins. It's another to truly understand it." The words hit like a slap, their intent unmistakable. Malik paused, his mind racing as he considered how to respond. He could feel the eyes of his classmates on him, some watching with curiosity, others with quiet support. Randall's smirk betrayed his satisfaction, as if he'd already won the exchange. But Malik wasn't about to back down. Taking a steadying breath, he addressed Randall's comment with a poised rebuttal, clarifying his methodology and reinforcing his conclusions. The room seemed to hold its breath as Malik stood his ground, his determination shining through every word. The clash between student and teacher had cast a shadow over the day, but Malik refused to let it define him. As he returned to his seat, a ripple of quiet admiration spread through the room. Randall, for his part, offered no further remarks, his expression unreadable. The stage was set, the lines drawn. Malik's quiet resilience had become a spark, one that would ignite a chain of events neither he nor Randall could have anticipated. Malik Collins grew up in a neighborhood often overlooked by society, where resources were limited and opportunities felt distant. Yet, from an early age, Malik showed a hunger for learning that couldn't be ignored. His parents, hard-working and supportive, instilled in him the importance of education as a path to empowerment. They encouraged his curiosity, celebrating every achievement, no matter how small, and constantly reminded him that his potential was boundless. In middle school, Malik discovered a love for science. He was fascinated by how things worked, be it the mechanics of a simple lever or the complexities of the human body. His teachers noted his inquisitive nature and drive, often commenting on how he stayed late in the library or tinkered with projects at home. Despite the systemic hurdles he faced, outdated textbooks, underfunded programs, and the low expectations of some educators, Malik thrived. His grades soared, and he dreamed of attending a top-tier university, aiming to become a biomedical engineer and contribute to advancements that could change lives. Yet, Malik was no stranger to subtle and overt bias. At times, teachers would credit his successes to luck rather than effort, and classmates would question if his achievements were earned. Malik learned to channel these moments into motivation, developing a quiet resilience and an unshakable belief in his abilities. By the time he reached high school, Malik's reputation as a brilliant and hard-working student had grown. He excelled in advanced placement classes, often leading discussions and offering insights that left even his peers in awe. But not everyone was supportive of his journey. Mr. Randall, a seasoned teacher with decades of experience, was one of those detractors. To many, Randall appeared to be a dedicated educator, known for pushing students to their limits. But for those like Malik, his tough exterior masked something far more insidious, a deeply ingrained bias that shaped his interactions with certain students. Randall's classroom was a microcosm of control. He wielded his authority with precision, often silencing dissent and dismissing perspectives that didn't align with his own. While he celebrated the achievements of some students, particularly those who fit his narrow definition of promising, he was quick to undermine others, especially those who challenged his assumptions. Malik's presence in Randall's class was a constant source of tension. Despite his academic prowess, Randall often nitpicked Malik's work, holding him to a higher standard than his peers. When Malik raised questions or offered alternative viewpoints, Randall dismissed them with veiled condescension, framing his bias as a commitment to rigor. Over time, Malik noticed a pattern. Students from marginalized backgrounds bore the brunt of Randall's scrutiny, while others enjoyed unearned praise. The divide between Malik's aspirations and Randall's prejudice became a quiet battle. For Malik, each class was a test not only of his knowledge, but also of his ability to rise above the subtle and overt challenges Randall presented. For Randall, Malik's success was a threat to his carefully curated authority, a reminder that talent and determination couldn't be contained by bias. This underlying conflict set the stage for an incident that would not only define their relationship, but also spark a chain of events that neither could foresee. Malik, armed with resilience and a thirst for knowledge, was about to face a moment that would test his resolve and ignite a transformation far beyond the classroom. The mid-morning sunlight filtered through the classroom's large windows as Mr. Randall paced back and forth, his voice sharp as he dissected a particularly challenging science topic. Malik sat in the second row, his hand raised high, ready to contribute a carefully thought-out observation. Despite his eagerness, Randall ignored him, choosing instead to call on a student who fumbled through a half-hearted answer. It wasn't the first time Malik's voice had been silenced, but he refused to let it dampen his determination. That day's discussion took an unexpected turn. Malik finally got the chance to speak, presenting an innovative idea that challenged the conventional viewpoint Randall had just explained. His perspective was well articulated and rooted in research, but it contradicted Randall's narrative. A brief, tense silence followed, and then the teacher's face hardened. "Malik," Randall said, his tone dripping with condescension, "it's clear you don't fully understand the material. Perhaps you should spend less time on creative interpretations and more time on the basics." The comment elicited a few awkward chuckles from the class. Malik, his composure unwavering, responded respectfully, "I've reviewed the material thoroughly, Mr. Randall, and my point aligns with supplementary research on the topic. I'd be happy to share my sources." Randall's eyes narrowed. "Enough," he snapped, cutting Malik off. "I've been teaching this for decades, and I don't need a lecture from someone who can't even stick to the curriculum." The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably. Some students exchanged uncomfortable glances, while others stared at their desks, unwilling to meet Malik's eyes. Emboldened by the lack of resistance, Randall continued, escalating the situation. "This is exactly what I've been observing from you lately. Disruptive behavior, undermining authority, and distracting others. Frankly, I'm not sure you belong in this class." Malik's heart raced, but his voice remained steady. "With all due respect, Mr. Randall, I'm here to learn and contribute, just like everyone else." That response seemed to enrage Randall further. "Enough is enough," he barked. "Pack your things and leave. I'll be filing a report with the administration to recommend your expulsion." The class froze. Malik slowly gathered his belongings, the weight of humiliation pressing down on him. As he walked toward the door, his classmates watched silently, some visibly uncomfortable but unwilling to speak up. A few students pulled out their phones, quietly recording the scene or messaging friends about what had just transpired. By the time Malik stepped into the hallway, the full reality of what had happened hit him. His chest tightened with a mix of anger and despair, but he refused to let it consume him. He knew this was more than a personal attack. It was an injustice he couldn't ignore. The incident spread quickly through the school. Students whispered about Randall's outburst, some defending Malik's character and others reluctant to challenge the teacher's authority. Social media posts began circulating, capturing snippets of the confrontation. Teachers and staff grew uneasy, their silence speaking volumes about the systemic flaws that allowed such incidents to go unchallenged. For Malik, the expulsion was devastating, but it didn't extinguish his resolve. He spent that evening with his family, recounting the event and finding solace in their unwavering support. Together, they decided this wasn't the end of his story. It was merely the beginning of a larger fight for fairness and accountability. The aftermath of Malik's expulsion set off ripples far beyond the school's walls. Unbeknownst to Mr. Randall, Malik's quiet resilience was backed by powerful allies. Among them was Malik's aunt, a respected member of the local school board and a tireless advocate for equity in education. The moment she learned of the incident, she sprang into action, her years of experience in navigating institutional biases coming into full force. Malik's family, guided by his aunt's expertise, meticulously documented every detail of the incident. They gathered the recordings taken by his classmates, testimonials from students and parents who had witnessed or experienced Randall's prejudiced behavior, and a history of other subtle injustices Malik had endured. Malik's aunt made it clear to the school administration that this was not just about one heated moment in a classroom. It was about a pattern of systemic discrimination that could no longer be ignored. Within days, news of the incident reached local media outlets, drawing attention to the school's apparent failure to address bias among its staff. The recordings of Randall's confrontation with Malik circulated widely, sparking outrage in the community. Parents demanded answers, students organized discussions, and activists called for accountability. The school administration, initially defensive, soon realized the gravity of the situation. They launched a formal investigation into Mr. Randall's conduct. Interviews with former students brought to light a troubling history. Several spoke of feeling belittled or unfairly treated by Randall, particularly students from marginalized backgrounds. Written complaints that had once been brushed aside were revisited, painting a damning picture of a teacher who had long misused his authority. Confronted with overwhelming evidence, including the recordings from Malik's incident, the school board took decisive action. Mr. Randall was placed on immediate administrative leave, pending the outcome of the investigation. By the time the review concluded, the board determined that Randall's actions were not only unprofessional, but also emblematic of a larger issue that needed addressing. He was formally dismissed from his position, his once untouchable authority crumbling under the weight of accountability. The school's principal issued a public apology to Malik and his family, acknowledging the failure to uphold the institution's values. The apology extended to other students who had been affected by Randall's behavior, signaling a turning point in how the school addressed issues of bias and discrimination. For Malik, the revelation was bittersweet. While it was validating to see justice served, it also underscored the challenges many students faced in silence. Yet, the experience reinforced his belief in the power of truth and resilience. Malik's story became a beacon of hope, igniting discussions about reform and inspiring others to speak out against injustice. Malik's reinstatement marked a turning point, not only for him, but for the entire school. Upon his return, the principal personally welcomed him back, acknowledging the systemic failures that had allowed such discrimination to occur. Malik's peers greeted him with applause and support, many expressing regret for not speaking up sooner. Teachers who had witnessed the incident quietly promised themselves they would never allow such injustice to go unchecked again. To ensure Malik's academic success, the school provided him with personalized mentorship and additional resources. A dedicated advisor helped him catch up on the material he had missed during his suspension, while community leaders offered support to help him regain his footing. Malik's determination shone brighter than ever, and he channeled his experiences into his studies and extracurricular activities. In a matter of months, Malik's focus and brilliance began to pay off. He entered a statewide academic competition and secured first place, earning recognition for both his intellect and resilience. His essay on overcoming adversity was selected for publication in a prestigious journal, and his story captured the attention of several universities. By the end of the school year, Malik received offers from multiple top-tier institutions, fulfilling his dream of attending a university that aligned with his aspirations. The impact of Malik's triumph extended beyond his personal success. The public scrutiny that followed the incident forced the school to confront its shortcomings. The administration partnered with diversity and equity experts to develop a comprehensive anti-bias training program for staff. Teachers participated in workshops designed to help them recognize and dismantle their own prejudices, creating a safer and more inclusive learning environment for all students. New policies were introduced to hold educators accountable for their behavior, including regular evaluations and anonymous feedback mechanisms for students. The school also established a support system for marginalized students, ensuring they had a platform to voice their concerns without fear of retaliation. Malik's case inspired a broader cultural shift within the school community. Students who had once been silent bystanders began actively promoting inclusivity and advocating for their peers. Parents formed committees to support the school's reforms, and alumni contributed resources to sustain these efforts. By the time Malik walked across the graduation stage, he was not only a top scholar, but a symbol of hope and change. His journey proved that resilience, when met with justice and support, could spark transformation. As he left for college, Malik carried with him the lessons of his past, determined to create a future where no one else would have to fight the battles he had endured. The air in the school auditorium was electric as Malik stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of students, teachers, and parents gathered for the graduation ceremony. Dressed in his cap and gown, his eyes reflected the weight of his journey and the pride of his triumph. As he adjusted the microphone, a hush fell over the audience, every ear tuned to hear what he would say. Resilience, Malik began, his voice steady and confident, is not just about enduring challenges. It's about using those challenges to fuel your purpose. My journey here wasn't easy, but it taught me the power of standing firm and believing in myself when it seemed like the world wanted to hold me back. The audience erupted into applause, his words resonating with those who had witnessed his transformation from an unjustly expelled student to a celebrated scholar. Malik's speech didn't dwell on the hardships, but instead focused on the hope and strength he found in community and determination. He acknowledged his family, mentors, and friends who stood by him, as well as the changes the school had made to ensure a better future for others. Meanwhile, outside the auditorium, the former teacher walked toward their car, their resignation marking the end of an era tainted by prejudice. The weight of accountability had finally caught up with them. Their departure was silent, a stark contrast to the vibrant applause echoing from the ceremony. The reforms sparked by Malik's experience had ushered in a new era for the school. The administration, once hesitant to confront biases, had embraced a proactive approach to creating an inclusive environment. Students like Malik were no longer exceptions to the rule. They were the standard bearers of what the school strived to nurture: talent, determination, and respect for all backgrounds. As the ceremony concluded, Malik walked confidently toward his family, his diploma in hand and a gleaming medal around his neck for academic excellence. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment, but Malik's attention was on his little sister, who beamed with pride. To her, he wasn't just her big brother. He was proof that barriers could be broken and dreams could be realized. As Malik and his family exited the auditorium, a diverse group of classmates approached him, shaking his hand and thanking him for his courage. They shared stories of how his stand against injustice had inspired them to speak up and pursue their ambitions without fear. The final shot lingered on Malik walking into the sunlight, his head held high, as the school building stood as a testament to transformation behind him. His journey was far from over, but his voice, once silenced by prejudice, now carried a message that would echo far beyond those walls. "They tried to silence me," Malik reflected as he stepped forward. "But now my voice is louder than ever,